The Nightmare Before Christmas, it's a Christmas classic, or Halloween classic? Holiday classic. It's a holiday classic. And it's a very unlikely story on how this film got made. I mean, it's technically a Disney film, and Disney ain't known for their dark films. But only something like this could come from the mind of Tim Burton. Kind of. How many of you didn't know that Tim Burton didn't even direct The Nightmare Before Christmas? He gets all the credit, and it was his initial idea, but he wasn't necessarily the hand that crafted this work. But we'll get to that in a second. In the 1980s, Tim Burton, who would later become synonymous with quirky and gothic cinema, was a young animator at Disney. Picture this: Burton, stuck in sunny Burbank where the seasons were more of a suggestion than a reality, was growing tired of drawing fuzzy woodland creatures. While everyone else was animating cuddly foxes and hounds, Burton was imagining something a bit darker. Out of this creative frustration came a particular poem with a spooky twist on The Night Before Christmas. A poem that introduced Jack Skellington, a skeleton who was bored with his life as Halloween's top ghoul. If you've ever wondered what happens when Halloween crashes into Christmas, well, Tim Burton had been pondering the same scenario. Now, Tim Burton, who was born in California, had a fascination with the eerie and unusual, which set him apart from the sun-soaked suburban surroundings that he grew up in. He grew up watching classic monster films and reading tales of dark, twisted fantasies, which fueled his love for the macabre. His unique artistic style led him to study at Cal Arts, where he developed his skills for animation. After graduating, Burton was hired by Disney in the early 1980s, a move that seemed like an unusual match from the start. At Disney, Burton worked on projects like The Fox and the Hound and The Black Cauldron, but his penchant for dark and quirky ideas clashed with Disney's more family-friendly approach. Frustrated by this, Burton started to create personal projects like the short film Vincent, which better reflected his gothic imagination. Now, while working at Disney, Burton penned a poem that would later become the foundation for The Nightmare Before Christmas. The inspiration struck during the holiday season when Burton noticed the odd contrast of Halloween and Christmas decorations coexisting in store windows. This sparked an idea. What if Halloween tried to take over Christmas? Burton's poem, clearly influenced by his love of Dr. Seuss and other whimsical storytellers, introduced Jack Skellington, the Pumpkin King of Halloween Town, who grows bored of the same old routine and stumbles upon the wonder of Christmas. In the poem, Jack's curiosity about Christmas leads him to kidnapping Santa in the hopes to take over the holiday. But, things naturally go awry. Burton's poem was witty and whimsical and frankly a bit weird. But this was Disney in the 1980s, a time where the House of Mouse wasn't ready for anything too weird. They promptly stuffed Burton's poem into a drawer, perhaps hoping he'd go back to animating something with big eyes and fluffy tails. But little did they know that a decade later, Burton would become a huge name in Hollywood, having directed Beetlejuice and Batman, films that not only solidified his reputation, but gave him the clout to dig up old ideas. Unfortunately, though, at this point, Burton was a busy guy, too busy, in fact, to direct The Nightmare Before Christmas. Any guesses on who directed it? I'll wait. It was Henry Selick, another Disney alum who was already a stop-motion animation wizard. If you think animating a single cartoon mouse is hard, try moving hundreds of tiny puppets millimeter by millimeter and frame by frame. Selick was a man who enjoyed making movies for brave children. He took on the gargantuan task of directing Burton's twisted Christmas tale. Selick, like Burton, also attended Cal Arts, but his focus was on perfecting the meticulous art of stop motion, where animators manipulate physical puppets frame by frame. Before Nightmare, Selick had built a reputation through his work on commercials and short films. Burton tapped Selick to direct the film when Burton himself was too busy with Batman Returns. Selick's vision and technical expertise were critical to the film's distinct look, helping bring Burton's characters and story to life in ways that had never been seen before. The film's production involved a team of hundreds, and it took 3 years to complete the painstaking animation. While Burton often gets most of the credit, it was Selick's mastery of stop motion and animation and his ability to bring depth to the world of Halloween Town that made the film a visual masterpiece. Now you may be wondering, how exactly does a skeleton sing? Well, Burton knew just the man for the job. Danny Elfman, who was a frequent collaborator and in a past life the frontman for the band Oingo Boingo. By 1980, Elfman was scoring all of Burton's films. He was now writing the melancholy tunes of a skeleton who had a serious case of an existential crisis. Not only did Elfman compose the music for The Nightmare Before Christmas, but he also became the voice of Jack Skellington's songs. Now, that was the easy part. The hard part was the actual animation of the film. This wasn't your regular Saturday morning cartoon. Selick and his team of animators took 3 years to animate The Nightmare Before Christmas, because as it turns out, moving puppets a tiny step at a time is time-consuming. Jack Skellington had over 400 different heads to help him express all of the emotions that he had building up inside of him. And let's not even start on the logistics of the Oogie Boogie, who was essentially a sentient sack of bugs. While the animation was revolutionary, the journey to get the film into theaters wasn't without drama. Disney, forever protective of its squeaky clean brand, took one look at this God Christmas mashup and said, yeah, we're not putting our name on that. Instead, they decided to put it under their Touchstone Pictures label. You know, just in case anybody got the wrong idea about Mickey Mouse hanging out with skeletons. But here's the thing, Disney's concerns weren't entirely off base. When The Nightmare Before Christmas premiered in 1993, it wasn't exactly an instant hit. Sure, it did all right at the box office, but it didn't become the cultural phenomenon that it is today until years later. The film had a little thing going for it called staying power. Over time, people came to appreciate the bizarre charm of Jack Skellington and his creepy but well-meaning pals. By the 2000s, Disney had realized it had a gold mine on their hand and promptly started plastering Jack Skellington everywhere from t-shirts to Halloween decorations. Elfman's score didn't resonate with everyone at first. In fact, the initial test audiences didn't quite know what to make of the Christmas musical that was also somehow about Halloween. But like everything else about this movie, the soundtrack became a hit over time. Covers of Elfman's songs are performed from everyone from Amy Lee to Billie Eilish, and the film remains a holiday staple. Despite Burton's vision and Selick's directorial finesse, the two didn't always get the credit that they deserve. Burton is often mistaken as the director of the film, making Jack Skellington move, which kind of sucks because Selick spent years hunched over miniature sets making Jack Skellington move. But he has a sense of humor about it. He has won many bets when asking people who directed The Nightmare Before Christmas. What started as an oddball passion project became a cultural phenomenon thanks to the persistence and creativity of Burton, Selick, and Elfman in particular, not to mention the entire crew of animators and everybody that worked on the film. Today, The Nightmare Before Christmas is not only a beloved film, but a genre-defying classic that people argue over to this day. Is it a Halloween movie? Is it a Christmas movie? Well, it's both. And Disney, well, they, of course, eventually embraced the darker side, adding the movie to their official roster and even giving it a yearly makeover at Disneyland's Haunted Mansion. So the next time you see Jack Skellington on a lunchbox or a t-shirt, remember that it was a film that almost didn't happen. It took a bunch of creative weirdos working on it over many years. In the words of Jack Skellington himself, what's this? It's a masterpiece, that's what it is.